right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to yoga. I'm Trish, and we're going to do a nice, slow, gentle somatic flow this morning. So, just working at your own level, we'll give different options and just do listen to what is best for your body this morning. So, let's start off this morning in child's pose. So, let's come onto the back of our mat, bringing the big toes together. Knees can be together or out wide. Draw your bum back towards your heels and then widen out across the hips as you start to lengthen the spine, and then melting the forehead down onto the mat. And then from here, just soften the elbows and take a couple of nice deep breaths into the body as you inhale. You're starting to breathe into the back of the body, expanding across the back. And as you exhale, just softening the hips, softening the belly and the chest. Just allowing the weight of the torso to melt down onto the thighs and starting to slow and deepen the breath. As we slow and deepen the breath, starting to calm the mind and the central nervous system. So just checking in with your body, noticing how you're feeling, where you might be holding on to tension. Just breathing into those spaces. As you exhale, sending a message from the mind to the body just to soften and release. Let's take another breath or two here. And then start to widen out across the hips, maybe slowly swaying your hips from side to side. Lengthen up through the spine, widen the shoulders, slide the shoulders back down away from the ears into their sockets. From here, let's lift up through the head and heart, ground back into your hips, pushing back into your left hip. And as you hug your belly in, walk your hands across to the right. And then exhale, keep the left hip pushing back towards the heel and then melting your belly across the thigh and bringing the nose to the outside of the knee. Take a couple of nice deep breaths here. Keep softening through the hips. Breathing into that left side of the back. When you're ready, let's lift up through the head and heart. Pushing back into the hips, belly hugging into the spine. Walking across to the second side. Inhale, and as we exhale, melting down. Keep grounding your right hip back towards the heel. Just breathing into that right side of the back. Okay, when you're ready, let's lift up through the head and heart, hug the belly in, come back to center, going back into a neutral position, just sway the hips a little bit from side to side, and then reaching the hands out. So hands shoulder width apart, start to spread the fingers wide, grounding into the tips of your fingertips, grounding into the roots of the fingers, maybe a little clawing into the earth. From here, let's roll the tailbone under and round yourself forwards, coming up into plank on your knees. Keep the belly hugging into the spine, and then as we exhale, we're going to widen the hips, belly hugs in, and arch the hips back over the knees. So moving with the breath as we inhale, rounding forwards, and then as we exhale, starting to arch, bringing the hips back. So let's do another two of those. So feeling that articulation of the spine as we come forwards, make sure your hips don't collapse, and then as you exhale, arching back. All right. And then on the next one, let's bring the hips back over the knees. Tuck your toes under. Bring the feet to hip width. Inhale. And as we exhale, we're going to slide the hips up and come up into our first down dog of the morning. So from here, just stretching out across the back. Stretching out through the backs of the legs. Just feel like you're stretching and ironing everything out. Getting rid of any little knots or kinks in the body. Just breathing into it. Keep the weight pushing back into the hips. Belly's hugging into the spine, maybe gently walking the legs out. Opening up through the hamstrings, backs of the knees, stretching out through the calves, the Achilles, and opening through the soles of the feet. Okay. Take another breath or two here. Keep the weight pushing back into the hips. Maybe lift the heels as high as you can. And then bend the knees and fold the belly all the way back to the thighs. And then from here, keep the weight pushing back into the hips and then lengthening the heels to the mat. All right, let's come forwards now. So come up onto your toes and then rolling the pelvis under. Imagine your knees are sliding up your thighs as you engage the core, coming into your plank. And then from here, shifting the weight forwards, coming onto your knees or staying on your toes as you exhale, coming down, and then inhale through, opening up through the heart. Make sure that you are lifting up through the insides of your legs, tailbones rolling back towards the mat. Your TVO band from hip to hip is really nice and active, rolling back towards the bum and reaching the heart forwards. Breathing into the heart center. Make sure there's no pinching through the lower back. And then as we exhale, rolling the chin to the throat and then folding back into child's pose or down dog, stretching out across the back. And walking out through the legs. Just get a nice stretch here. Keep widening out across your hip crease. And think about melting your belly towards the thighs. Maybe just gently shake the head from side to side. Nod it up and down, releasing the neck. Maybe opening, closing the mouth if you tend to hold tension around the jaw. And then as you release the neck, keep winding your armpits downwards towards the mat. So we're creating stability across the shoulders so that we can relax the neck and head. One more breath here. Okay, let's come forwards again. So coming up onto the toes, rolling your spine forwards into your plank, coming onto your knees or toes. And then let's exhale, come down. Inhale yourself through, opening the heart. So only come as high as is comfortable into Sphinx Baby Cobra Up Dog. Pushing the hands into the mat, drawing the elbows or the hands back towards the hips. So you're feeling a really nice opening through the chest. Make sure there's no pinching in your lower back. Exhale, rolling chin to throat and then folding back into down dog or child's pose. Take a couple of nice deep breaths here. Stretching out across your back. And just check in with the body, notice how everything feels. All right, from here, let's take the left leg and then inhale, extend your left foot back. Start with a square hip, so we're just winding up through the inner thigh and winding down through the outer hip, feeling the strength and the activation when we work with a square hip. And now open your hip up, and then maybe pointing the toes, bend that top knee, reaching the knee to the sky, breathing into that left hip, squaring the shoulders. Let's trace a circle with the knee, so we're mobilizing the hip joint. Hug the belly into the spine and bring your knee forwards to the outside of your left shoulder. Now step your foot forwards and then bring the back knee down, coming into your lizard. So if you need, grab your blocks and pop your, so here your foot is slightly outside of your hip. You can grab your blocks and pop your hands onto your blocks or bring your hands down onto the mat. So let's lift up out of our hips. And then from here, let's just gently draw a few circles with the hips in one direction. Just breathing into the pelvis. So make sure that the weight's in our core and we're not dumping into the pelvis. And then gently back the other way, drawing your little circles. Keep breathing into the hips. Keeping that hip crease nice and wide. Okay. From here, we're going to take the left hand, bring it to the outside of your foot and heel toe your foot out. So now your feet are hip width apart. So now we're in a low lunge position. So from the lizard, take your hand out to the outside and heel toe the foot. So now the feet are hip width apart. Keeping the belly on the thigh, keep lifting out of the hips. And we're just going to gently sway the hips back and forth. Perhaps each time that we come back, we can come back a little bit further without feeling any pulling, any kind of sharp, twingy actions, keeping the hips nice and level and keeping that hip crease nice and wide. Okay, let's just come up into a low lunge. So shift the weight forwards and make sure it's on the back kneecap. Inhale, coming up, so front knee stacks above your ankle. And then bring the hands together. Inhale, lifting up out of the hips, lifting up through the ribs. And then as you exhale, draw your belly into the spine. Maybe a little gentle back bend here, opening up through the heart. And then exhale, bring the hands forwards. Okay, so from here, bring your hands a little bit wider out. Okay, so it will look like this. And then lifting out of the hips, we're going to gently draw our hips towards the left. So you're going to end up in a half pigeon, half frog position. So make sure the hip crease is nice and wide. Okay, let's transition into deer now. So this right knee, we're going to bring it up so that our knees, so now you have one shin facing the front and one shin facing the side. Okay. Lengthen the spine. Inhale. As we exhale, let's come into a twist. So bring your left hand behind, right hand onto the outside of the knee or thigh. Lengthening the spine as we inhale. As we exhale, hug the belly into the spine and just gently starting to twist. And just feeling that opening through the left side of your waist, opening up through the ribs and the heart center. Lengthening through the spine from the base to the crown as you inhale. As you exhale, hugging the belly in. And maybe deepening into your twist. Breathing into it here. Okay, and then let's widen out through the hip crease. And then you can let your right hip lift. Keep the left hip on the ground. And then from here, we're just going to gently walk the hands forwards and then just coming down. Maybe just some gentle swaying where you can melt down. Just take a couple of nice deep breaths here. So keep the hip crease nice and wide and just breathing into the back of the body. Keep that left hip on the floor. So we're not rolling the hips forwards too much. And that right hip might lift slightly. And then from here, take your hands out and then lifting through the core, gently starting to sway from side to side as we start to walk our hands across into a semicircle position. Good morning, Catherine. So we're in deer position and we're just coming down and coming into a little bit of somatic movement. So feel into that hip crease. And then we just want to keep that hip crease nice and wide as we slowly slide from side to side. And as you do that, maybe you can feel a little bit of release. Maybe you can lengthen out through the hands a little bit more. So we want to keep the left hip on the floor. Your right hip can be slightly off. And then we're starting to walk ourselves in a little semicircle. So from the side, from our twist, we've come from the side and we're keeping that left hip on the floor as we start to lengthen out. You might find a point that feels a little bit tight, so you might want to take a couple of breaths there. And then gently starting to make your way across your circles. So Diane, start to make your way across to the front. And keep widening and grounding back into the hips. And then keeping that left hip on the ground, we start to go around to the other side. So might need to bring the hands a little bit closer in for that. And then now bring your right hand in line with your hips and take your left hand up to the sky. Inhale, and as we exhale, just gently opening up. Relax that bottom shoulder down away from the ear. All right, let's inhale and then exhale, come onto the other side and then just lifting up through the back of the heart center, rolling the bottom ribs forwards, shoulders away from the ears. All right, push into your bottom hand, inhale, come up, shoulders away from the ears. Take that right leg, straighten the right leg out. Let's come into wild thing. So we're going to take this front hand and reach it up, lifting out of the hip. And just getting a nice stretch out here, rolling that bottom shoulder into its socket. Keep squeezing the glutes and maybe opening the hips and the heart towards the sky. Breathing in here, widen the hips. Exhale, bring the hips back down. Coming into half straddle, we're going to keep that right leg open. Take the left hand onto your right hand on the inner thigh. Take the left hand up, shoulders away from the ears. Inhale as we exhale, reaching across. Perhaps we can go a little bit deeper this time. Imagine you're holding a beautiful sun or a sphere of energy above your head. Keep the spine nice and long as you inhale. As you exhale, maybe pushing your elbow or your hand into the knee or thigh so you can slide those bottom ribs forwards a little bit further. All right, Inhale, belly hugs in, come back up, shoulder away from the ear. Bring your foot forwards now, coming into half straddle forward fold. So inhale, and as we exhale, melting over that front leg, taking a couple of nice deep breaths here. Keep drawing that right hip back into the socket. Keeping the hip crease nice and wide. Let's take another breath or two here. Okay, when you're ready, let's roll back up through the spine. Lift up through the crown, shoulders away from the ears. So from here, we're going to bend that other knee in. So you're now in a seated position. Bring the hands forwards. And then we're just going to lift the hips. And then you can step or float yourself back into plank. Come through your flow here. So knees or toes, exhaling down. Inhaling through, opening up through the heart. Breathing into the front of the body. And then as we exhale, rolling the chin to the throat. And melting back into child's pose or down dog. So take a couple of breaths here. Stretching out across the back. Walking out through the legs, maybe widening out across your hip crease and then squaring the hips. Notice how you feel, maybe one side compared to the other. All right, let's come on to the second side. So take your right leg, inhale, extend that right foot back. And then now open that hip up. Bend that top knee and then square the shoulders. And then let's mobilize the hip by tracing a circle with the knee. Draw the belly into the spine and bring your knee forwards to the outside of your shoulder. So same side. Step your foot forwards, come onto your back knee. So coming into lizard here. And then once again, if you need to, grab your blocks and you can pop your hands onto your blocks, lifting out of the hips. And then let's gently just circle the hips a few times. Once again, we're lifting out of the hips so we're not, there's no weight in the hips, so we can feel all that space between the bones. Just breathing into it. And then gently back the other way. Deepening the breath. Okay. From here, we're going to take the left hand onto the outside of the foot. Heel toe your foot in, so you're in a low lunge. And then keeping the belly on the thigh, keep lifting out of the hips. We're just gently drawing the hips back and forth. Just breathing into it, so slowing the movement down and just finding those little tight areas. Okay, let's come forwards, come into your lifting up, coming into your back bend here, lifting up through the fingertips, and then maybe bringing the hands together, lifting out of the hips, and then as you exhale, squeezing the glutes, belly hugs into the spine as we open the heart, and then inhale back up. Exhale, release the hands. So from here, we're taking the hands up to this to either side of the front foot. Keep the hip crease wide, and then we're just gently bringing ourselves down onto the right side. So you're back in your pigeon half frog on the second side. So you look like this, and then we're going to bring that back knee up and transition into deer pose. Okay, so lengthening the spine, relax the shoulders. Inhale, and as we exhale, take the right hand behind, left hand onto the outside of the knee or thigh. And just coming into our little twist here. So keep the spine nice and long. Keep that right hip on the floor. And the left hip can lift. Let's keep the belly hugging in as we start to exhale, and maybe push your left hand against that knee or thigh to deepen into your twist. Twisting from the ribs and feeling that opening up through that right side of your hip, the side waist, through the ribs and through the chest. Just breathing into it. And we keep widening out through that hip crease, and then keep that hip on the floor. We're going to start to walk ourselves forwards over the side of that leg. And so here you might just feel a little bit more compression through that hip crease, maybe some gentle swaying from side to side, or maybe just melting down, taking a couple of nice deep breaths here. So just tune into your body, do what feels good. Okay, and when you're ready, perhaps starting to keep the hips nice and wide, grounding back into the hips, and then starting to slowly walk yourself across your semicircle. So keeping that right hip grounded onto the floor so that hip doesn't come forwards in front of the foot. And your hands only coming as far as you can keep the grounded, and then we're slowly making our way across. So sometimes it might just feel nice taking a couple of breaths in each part of your semicircle. Sometimes it might feel nice just doing a little bit of somatic movement. Just breathing into wherever you're feeling the stretch. Coming a little bit further across. Keep softening through the hips. Making your way to the front. Keep deepening the breath. Notice as you change the angle of your little semicircle, where it changes the sensation in your back or in your hips. And then just breathing into it, maybe some gentle movement. And then as we come a little bit wider past the midline, so it depends on how much you've softened through your TFL. Sometimes you might need to bring the hands in and come a little bit further up. I find that on this side, it's a little bit more open in my body. And then walk yourself to the other side. Bring your left hand in line with your hip now. And take the right hand up to the sky. And then reaching across, lifting up through the ribs, belly hugs into the spine, opening that top shoulder back. All right, from here, let's inhale, lift up, exhale, come to the second side, reaching across, winding the heart open. Okay, bring that hand down. From here, let's take that leg out, coming into our wild things. So just taking that leg out to the side and then lifting out of the shoulder, lifting out of the hip, opening up through that left hip, pushing the toes of your left foot onto the floor. So that's your foundation. So grounding the toes, lifting out of the hips, lift out of your bottom shoulder, and then widen through the hip. Exhale, bring that hand down, coming into our side opener and straddle. So bring your left hand on the inside, right hand goes to the sky, shoulders away from the ears as we exhale, reaching back across. So we're doing a lot of opening up through our side body, opening up through our gallbladder meridian today, as well as a lot of little twists, which will help us with that wood energy. Keep pushing your bottom elbow, your hand into the thigh, so we can start to wind those bottom ribs, chest open. All right, let's push into the bottom hand. Inhale back up, shoulder away from the ear. Exhale, release. Take that leg, bring it forwards. Squaring the hips now. Inhale, and as we exhale, melting down. So keep a little bend in that front knee if you need, so we're not feeling lots of pulling through the hamstring or through the lower back. Just deepening the breath. Okay, when you're ready, let's roll up through the spine. Lengthen up, shoulders away from the ears. So we bring that foot back in, we bring the hands forwards, and then we float back into plank. Sideways. And then come through your flow here. Either knees, chest, and chin, planking on your knees or toes. So exhale down, inhale through, opening up through your heart. Keep the tailbone rolling under, and then exhale, roll yourself back into child's pose or down dog. Take a couple of nice deep breaths here into the body, maybe widening out across your hip crease and then squaring the hips by Once again, rolling the outer hip down and rolling up through the inner thighs. And just checking in, notice how you're feeling. Keep pushing back into the hips, stretching out across the back. Just keeping the belly hugging in towards the thighs. Okay, let's take another breath or two here. All right, let's come back into three-legged cat or three-legged dog. So either staying in down dog or coming back into tabletop. Take the right leg. Inhale, open up through the hip and then bending that top knee. Square the shoulders. Trace a circle with the knee. We're going to come knee to the same side. Hold it here for a moment. And then inhale it back. Open the hip, bend the knee. Square the shoulders. Trace a circle. Belly hugs in. Knee goes to the opposite side. Inhale it back. Open the hip, bend the knee, square the shoulders. Trace a circle, roll forwards, knee to nose or forehead. Inhale it back. Okay, so from here, option one is to take that same transition where we circle and we come back into lizard. All right, option two is to take your leg. Now, if you're in down dog, open that hip up, flex your foot, and then feel the thigh bone in its socket, lifting out of the hip so there's space in our hip crease, and keeping a straight leg. We take that foot all the way forwards to land to the outside of your wrist. And then you bend into the front knee and come into your lizard this way. So you can do that from tabletop as well. So you open that hip and then you bring that foot forwards and then transition, keeping the hip crease wide, okay? Or from down dog. So where we keep that leg straight. And then we find, so make sure you're widening through the hip crease. And then we're back in lizard, either on your blocks or your hands. And then we just do a few circles in one direction and back the other way. Okay, now keep lifting out of your right hip so we're not collapsing into that hip. Let's come into a little twist here. So you can either bring your right hand onto your mat or onto your block. You're going to bend that back knee. Take your left hand now, reach it up. And as you exhale, keep rolling your tailbone under and reach for your back foot. Other way, so opposite hand and opposite leg. So you can be on a block and come up, and then you want to reach for that back foot and then make sure you're on the knee cap, not the knee joint. Draw that foot in. If you're in your lizard, you can come onto the knife edge of your foot and flex the foot so you're pushing into the knife edge of your foot. So make your block a little bit higher if you need to, and then we're feeling a nice stretch through the quad here. If you've got your foot, keep rolling your tailbone under and pulling your heel in towards your bum. Maybe lift that top elbow, looking back. Keep the belly hugging in towards the spine. Okay, if it's not accessible, that's okay. And just release it here. Okay, take the hands, ground the hands back down, lift the knee, and then sway the hips back and forth. If you didn't do your twist before, you have an option of doing a twist here, like so, but we're going to come back into some little twisties anyway. So you have an option to do this as well, twisting towards the front leg. All right, let's bring that hand back down, keep the hips wide, and then walk that foot in now. So after we've brought the hips back and forth a few times, bring the back knee down, and now bring your feet back to hip width apart. And then we're just coming back into this half Hanuman position as we draw the hips back and forth. Okay, and then come back, stack your hips back over your back knee, and then just take a couple of nice deep breaths here. Keeping the belly on the thigh and just squaring the hips. Once again, keeping the hip crease wide, maybe starting to lift the toes and the balls of your feet to extend that stretch out through to your calf. All right. Let's come back up now. So coming into our little back bend, so lifting up and then lifting out of the hips, and then as we exhale, squeeze the glutes, and then holding back, squeezing through the backs of your shoulder blades. Inhale back to center. Exhale, release the hands. So keeping the hip crease nice and wide, And then we're going to gently support ourselves down. So when we come straight down, we are now back into our half pigeon, half frog. Option 1 is to come back into deer pose where you bring that back knee down. Otherwise, option 2, we stay in this position here now. And notice that right hip might be off the floor, and that's okay. Lengthen the spine, inhale, and as we exhale, we're going to start to walk the hands forwards and come forwards over our front shin. So just breathing into the hips here. So we're going to feel sensation on that right hip. Just try to soften rather than pushing down into it. Think about widening out across your hip crease. And then as you exhale, softening down. Sometimes it feels very tight. Some very slow, gentle swaying from side to side might help. Just breathing into it. Okay, let's take one more nice deep breath here. When you're ready, slowly push into your hands, walk yourself back up. So this right leg now, we're going to straighten it out for Wild Thing. So straighten your leg out to the side, bring your left hand in line with the foot, with the straight leg, and then we're going to lift up and then open up in Wild Thing here. So you're just getting a release from that in that right hip. And then exhale, come back down. Now keep the front leg where it is. We're widening out through the hips, and this right leg, we're going to take it back into pigeon now. So we're straightening it back behind us. Now, if you need, you can pop a block underneath your front hip. If you find you're quite high off the ground, you can pop a block there to make it a little bit more accessible. And then from here, we just widen out through the hips. So like this, widening out through the hips, squaring the hips and the shoulders to the short end of the mat, lengthening the heart as we inhale, exhale, coming down. Stay here for 5 breaths. As we inhale, widening out across the hips, breathing into the hips, maybe visualizing a diamond around them. And as you exhale, just softening down. Okay, when you're ready, let's slowly start to come up. Walk your hands in and hands are shoulder width apart. Tuck the back toes under, lift the back knee, sway the hips back and forth for a moment. Okay, and then we're going to roll onto that left hip again. And then from here, take that leg, bring it around and come back into your forward fold. And let's take a couple of breaths here. So we're just changing the angle. If you're all the way down, maybe you can grab your block and then pop your block over so you can use the block to give you a little bit of extra reach, and then push it against your toe so you feel that stretching the calf. One more breath here. And then when you're ready, releasing the bind, roll yourself back up, shoulders away from the ears, bending that knee in, bring the hands forwards and float yourself back into your plank. Come through your flow here. Opening the heart. And then exhale, roll yourself back into child's pose or down dog. Widening out across the hips, squaring the hips. Just checking in with the body, notice how you're feeling. Okay, when you're ready, let's do the second side. So 3-legged cat or 3-legged dog. Take the right leg up, open up through the hip, bending that top knee. Square the shoulders, draw the belly into the spine, trace a circle with the knee, roll forwards, knee comes to the same side, elbow or armpit lifting through the core. Inhale, extend it back, open the hip, bending the knee, square the shoulders, trace a circle, belly hugs in, knee goes to the opposite side. Inhale, extend the foot back, open the hip, bend the knee, square the shoulders, Trace a circle and then roll forwards knee to the nose or forehead. Inhale the foot back. Okay, from here you can either do the same thing with the circle, otherwise we open the hip, flex the foot, and then feel that hip in its socket. Keep your legs straight, keep the hip crease wide as we bring the foot forwards to the outside of the hand, and then we bend into the front knee without collapsing the other hip. Okay, bring your other knee down, and then from here, option one, start to make a few little circles. So as we explore that somatic movement, sometimes that helps to release and we can bring the hips a little bit closer towards the ground without collapsing through the other hip. Otherwise, when you bring the left hand down, take the right hand back, bend your back knee, perhaps reaching onto the back of the foot. So you might need to come higher up if you're quite, maybe come onto your blocks so you'll look more like this, or even a higher block option, right? Rather than, and if it's not accessible, come into the next twist version. Otherwise, if you have your foot, then we start to pull the hip, we start to twist, so we're lengthening out through the spine, and then hug the belly in as we twist from the ribs, and then you're pushing that heel in towards your bum to feel that stretch through the quad as you continue to open through the ribs and opening up towards the right side, eye gaze going back. All right, and from here, release if you've got your bind. Bring the hands back down and then lift the back knee and sway the hips back and forth. Otherwise, if you didn't do a twist, you're bringing the right hand down, left hand down, and you're twisting in this position here. So if you haven't already, okay, take the hands back down and then walk heel toe that foot in. So feet are hip width, and then just gently drawing the hips back and forth here for a few breaths. Okay, and then you can either continue with that or otherwise melting down and just taking a couple of nice deep breaths here. Keeping the belly on the thigh, maybe starting to flex the foot. Okay, push come forwards again, come back into our low lunge, lifting the arms up, lifting out of the hips. Back bend here, opening up through the heart. And then inhale back up. Exhale, release the hands. All right, so from this position here, we bring the hands down. We keep the hip crease nice and wide as we start to bring the knee down and then bring ourselves to the side. Okay, so option one, bring that back knee further up, back into deer, or stay here, widen out through your hips. And then you can maybe just sway from side to side. Sometimes that helps a little bit to get you further down. So you might find that when you come through this diagonal angle, you can maybe come a little bit lower down and then sort of bring yourself sideways into the shape. Otherwise, if it feels okay, you can maybe just come straight down forwards. And so we're in our half pigeon, half frog, and just melting down here, or in deer pose. And just breathing into the hips. Expanding with the inhale as we exhale, try to soften. So we're trying to melt that left hip to the floor without pushing into it. Softening and deepening the breath. Okay, when you're ready, push into your hands. Lift yourself back up. Start with wild thing. Bring your right hand by your hip. Take your left foot straight out. And then from here, we push into the shin and lift up, coming into our wild thing. Just having a nice little stretch here. As we release, and then as we exhale, widen the hip. Come back down. Bring the hands forwards, and then bring that foot back. Come into your pigeon pose. Maybe pop a block underneath your right hip if you need to. Lengthening out through the spine, keeping the hips and the shoulders square to the front of your mat, and then melting yourself down. Taking some nice deep breaths here. Wherever you're feeling the stretch, just breathing into it, expanding with the inhalation. And as you exhale, just softening. Right. When you're ready, let's gently push into the hands. Walk the hands back in. Tuck your back toes under, lift the back knee, sway the hips back and forth for a moment. Roll onto your right side, and then once again, keep the hip crease wide. Feel the thigh bone in its socket as we bring that foot forwards and coming into our forward fold. And lengthening the spine, widening the hips. Inhale, exhale, melting forwards. And taking some nice deep breaths here. Just breathing into the back of the leg, breathing into the back. Okay, when you're ready, let's roll up through the spine. Lengthen up, shoulders away from the ears, bend that foot in, bring the hands forwards and float back into plank. So come through your flow here, or hang out in down dog. Opening the heart, and then exhale it back. Okay, take a couple of breaths in your down dog and just check in with your body. Notice how everything feels, keeping the hips nice and wide. You're walking the legs out. Hopefully the legs feel a little bit more open. The hips might feel more open. Okay. From here, once you have walked your legs out and swayed a little bit, we're going to come onto our toes and then externally rotate your hips so your toes are now pointing to the sides, and then bend the knees so it's almost like we're doing like we're a little frog now. Okay, so we can bend the knees and make a little spring with our hips. All right, so we're just going to do a little hop and we're going to clap our feet 3 times. So from here, just lift and clap. Okay, so we just want to lift and clap the feet. So if you're pushing back into the hips, you're not going to fall forwards. If you want to use this as a handstand practice, you can bring the hips over the shoulders. Otherwise, this is just practice to jump to the front of the mat. So because the hips are pushing back, we're not going to fall forwards, and then you can just lift the feet and do a little hop. Okay. Once you've tried a couple of those, now keep the little spring in your feet, and now you look at your hands and you look to the outside of your hands. And we're going to do a little bunny hop, and we're going to hop ourselves into a squat position at the front of our mat. Okay, so now we're going to so we look like this. We're going to have 2 options. If a squat is quite comfortable for you, you're going to stay in this squat position if you can get your heels all the way down. Sometimes you might need to bring the feet a little bit wider apart. If this is not comfortable or accessible, come back down onto your knees. Okay, so option 1 is you're going to have your backs of your hands, and we've got a nice little round back. And then as we inhale, you're going to start to lift up onto the knees and arch your spine as you open the chest. As you exhale, you're winding yourself back down and rounding back down. Okay, so that's option 1. Backs of the hands are together, and then as we inhale, we open the chest and lift the heart as we bring the hands to the sides. Okay, and you exhale down. Option 2 is if you're comfortable in your squat. Okay, so we start with the knees in, backs of the hands together, and you're in this round position. So as you inhale now, you're going to come up onto the toes, start to externally rotate the hips, widening the knees out, and then lifting up through the heart so the heels are off the ground. As we exhale, we're going to bring the heels back down, bring the knees in, hips are in, and then rounding the spine. Okay, so 3 breaths here, whatever option feels best for you. As we inhale, we start to open and arch, lifting through the back of the heart, belly hugs in. As we exhale, we bring the hips back in and round the spine, and lift through the belly, lift through the chest. So feel that articulation of the spine, that movement of the hips as we open and close the hips. Awesome. All right, once you've done your 3, let's come back into a neutral position. Okay, so option 1 now, if you're on your knees, you're going to sit in a cross-legged position. So if you were taking that option like this, then you're going to come into cross-legged, and your option is or half lotus or cross-legged, and you're coming into an open twist, and then maybe you take that back hand and you reach it back. Okay, so as that back hand is supporting, but as we twist, you feel that opening that back hand up. Okay, otherwise you're coming with me and you're coming into a squat. From here, we take the left hand just underneath the shoulder and then take your right hand back. So whatever variation you're in, your spine is nice and long, your belly's hugging in to the spine, and you're twisting from the ribs, and then you're extending out through those back fingertips. So you're feeling that opening through the chest and extending out. If you're in your squat now, you might be able to drop your your left shoulder in front of your knee. And then from here, take the hand around, take the other hand around, and perhaps create a bind with your hands. Try to keep the hips level, because notice how the hips are going to want to lift a little bit, and then pushing the other hip down, belly hugging in as we start to continue to open up through that right side of the chest. Keep the belly hugging into the spine. All right, let's release it here. Coming back in, and if you're sitting cross-legged, swap your legs around so that you're nice and even, whichever foot is in front. Okay, and then we'll do the second side. So if you're sitting cross-legged, you inhale, and as you exhale, you bring the hand onto the knee or thigh. As you continue to twist, as you get up through your chest, you can start to extend out through the fingertips. Otherwise, we're coming into our twist from our squat position. Keep lengthening the spine, and as you exhale, twisting from the ribs, extending out through that back hand. Maybe take that back hand around, maybe drop your front shoulder in front of your knee, and then create a bind with your hands. And then as you exhale, hug the belly in as we keep the hips level and continue to twist from the ribs. Maybe feeling that twist going up through your cervical spine, through your neck, and taking your head to look over the left a little bit more. Right, let's release it here. Belly hugs in and come back to center. Let's do another 3 breaths of our cat-cow, whether you're coming back onto your knees or staying in your squat position. So as we inhale, we open and arch. And then as we exhale, we round and curl. So if you're in cross-legged, come back onto your knees. So inhale and open. And then we exhale and round. And last one. Inhale and open, and exhale and round. Okay, come back down, bring your bum back to the floor, extend your legs out, give them a quick little shake out in the hip sockets, windscreen wipers with the feet. Okay, from here, bring your right foot in. You can either keep it forwards or just have your knee bent. I kind of feel it's easier with my knee bent. Lengthen the spine, relax the shoulders. Keep the hip crease nice and wide, as I've been saying all morning. So every time we want to move the hips, we want to keep that hip crease wide. From here, keep that hip crease wide and feel like you're externally rotating and winding that foot out, and that hip out, that knee out, that thigh out, and hold on to the knife edge of your foot with your right hand. From here, you can maybe hold the knee with the other hand and just gently start to draw a few circles now. So we're mobilizing the hip like we've been doing morning, and then circling it back the other way. Notice how when we do that, sometimes the body might kind of round forward. So I want you to just lengthen up through the spine, keep the spine nice and long. Okay, and then you can continue with those circles, or maybe you can bring the elbow and the knee into the crook of your, maybe you can bring the foot and the knee into the crook of your elbows and kind of rock it back and forth like you're holding a baby. And then keep circling in one direction, other way. And we can bring that foot a little bit higher up. So from the belly, bringing that foot up towards our chest or towards the face. Okay, and option here. So option 1 is to just lengthen up through your spine. Take your your left hand underneath your calf. Maybe hold your foot and lift up out of your spine and take the hand out. Okay. So keep the spine nice and tall, and we're trying to point the toes out to the same direction as the hand. Okay, awesome. All right, from here, if you want a little bit more, you can either continue with circling or maybe hold on to the outside of your foot with your right hand. And then we're going to start to just gently see if we can bring that knee above our shoulder. So we're going to come into compass pose. Okay, so once we've got that foot there, that knee behind the shoulder, bring your left hand to the floor, hold on to the knife edge of your foot. Yep, and then let that hip lift and we start to twist. So we're opening, bringing our head underneath. Awesome, Catherine. So lengthen out through the foot, push out through the inner ankle, and opening up through that right side as we extend out. All right, let's release it here. Release your foot. And then from here, relax, shake the legs out. And let's do the second side. So grab the foot, grab the knee, and then just gently starting to rock from side to side, making a few little circles in one direction, back the other way. Just breathing into the hip. So hopefully after our little slow somatic flow, the hip should feel quite open. And then we're bringing it a little bit higher up. And so option to keep holding the knife edge of your foot and holding your knee, or maybe coming a little bit deeper and holding it like a baby. Lengthening up through the spine. So once again, notice how the back might want to round forwards. Way to lengthen and lift up. Just breathing into wherever you're feeling the stretch. And so sometimes, so we want to alternate between circles and a gentle swaying motion, and just feel into your body. Some days you might feel like, oh, this swaying motion feels like it's releasing more. Some days making circular motions might release more. Okay, then you'll try to get your foot, your shin parallel. Bring your right elbow underneath. So we're holding onto the calf. You point the toes so you can extend the hand out. You can maybe make a little mudra here. Lift up through the back of your heart. And we're trying to create a line here with from the knee, the shin, and the hand. Keep lifting up through the back of your heart center. Gaze out into the fingertips. All right. And then from here you can release and maybe come back into some somatic movement. Otherwise, maybe holding onto the knife edge of the foot. See if we can get that foot a little bit higher up. And then we want to get that knee behind the shoulder as much as we can. And then starting to lift up, straightening out through that foot, bringing your head underneath your hand. Keep the belly hugging into the spine as you draw your lower ribs around your leg. Opening up here. Some work, Catherine. And then when we're ready, let's release. Bending into that knee, release that foot. Extend your legs out, give them a little shake out in the hip sockets, windscreen wipers with the feet. Awesome work today, guys. Okay. From here, let's roll onto the back and then just hug your knees in and just gently rock from side to side, massage your back. Circle the knees a few times in one direction and back the other way. Okay, let's come into a little twist. So lengthen the spine, relax the shoulders, and then from here, just pop your hips across to the right, draw your belly into the spine and drop the knees across to the left. Keep the shoulders rounded. And then if you want a little bit more, maybe take your top knee out towards your opposite elbow or extend the foot out. Maybe extend the bottom leg out if it's more comfortable. Keep the belly hugging into the spine, taking any option of twist that feels good. Just releasing lower back, middle back, upper back and shoulder. Maybe bend the top knee, and then when you're ready, you can push with the exhalation on the top knee to bring that knee closer towards the floor. Keep the hips level. Hip creases wide. Okay, when you're ready, draw the belly into the spine. Inhale back to center. Feet in the middle, hips in the middle. Lengthen the spine and then hug the knees back in. Rock yourself from side to side. Maybe circling the knees in one direction and other way. Maybe in opposite directions. Okay, and then let's do the other side. So bring the hands out, pop your hips to the side, and as you exhale, drop the knees across to the other side. And then you can stay there with both knees bent. Otherwise, maybe taking your top knee a little bit higher towards the opposite elbow, or maybe extending that top leg out, or maybe you can straighten that bottom leg. So just find whatever is a comfortable twist position for you, keeping the spine nice and tall. Belly's hugging in towards the spine and just feeling a nice release across your back. And maybe bending the top knee. Okay, when you're ready, hug the belly in, slowly inhale back to center. Feet in the middle, hips in the middle, hug both knees in and rock from side to side, massaging out through the back. Circling the knees in one direction, back the other way. Knees apart, circle them in opposite directions. And then back the other way. And let's finish with happy baby. Bring the soles of your feet to the sky like you're about to walk on the ceiling. Hold on the backs of your knees, your calves, your ankles, or the outside edges of your feet, widening out across the hips and collarbones. And then trying to bring the knees onto either side of your ribs along the mat. Keep pushing out through the two inner corners of your feet, stacking the heels over the knees as you rock from side to side. Feel that nice massaging out through the muscles on either side of your spine, maybe feeling that massaging out through your kidneys, your adrenals at the back of the body. Okay, and then when you're ready, release the feet, slide them out, give them a little shake out in the hip sockets, windscreen wipers with the feet, little shimmy out through the body. And then when you're ready, just relaxing down into Shavasana. So have your feet just a little bit wider than hip width, allowing the feet to melt up to the sides. If you need more space through your lower back, you can tuck your tailbone under and relax it back down. Lengthen up through the spine, widening the shoulders, collarbones, and slide the shoulders back down away from the ears into their sockets. Make sure the back of your neck is free. If you have hair in a bun or a ponytail, slide it up to the side. And keeping the back of the neck long, rolling the chin in towards the throat. The tip of the tongue resting on the roof of the mouth just behind the two front teeth so that the energy circuits are connected. Keeping the eyes slightly closed, lips slightly touching, and just deepening the breath. The full deep body breaths. Feeling the belly rising and falling with the breath. As we did a lot of opening, gentle opening through the hips this morning. Perhaps you can feel your breath descending a little bit lower down to the belly, into the hips. The exhale, just letting everything soften. And just allowing everything just to integrate. Okay, so if you're watching this as a replay video, feel free to stay in Shavasana as long as you like. Otherwise, if you're ready to come out, maybe just gently bring some movement back into the body, wriggling fingers and toes. Let's do whatever feels good. You might want to stretch out, or you might want to give yourself a hug, or hug the knees in towards the chest. So everything is just a suggestion. Just do whatever feels good for you right now. Maybe some gentle rocking from side to side, or some circling of the knees. Maybe a gentle twist, drawing the belly in, and just dropping the knees from one side of the body to the other. When you're ready, bring your hand underneath your head, create a pillow for your neck, and just gently roll yourself onto your preferred side in a nice, nourishing fetal position. Keeping the eyes slightly closed, the whole body's nicely relaxed. Gently push into your top hand, straighten your top leg, and support yourself to come back into a comfortable seated position. Okay, so keeping the sit bones even, lengthening up through the spine. Inhale, shoulders up, back down and into their sockets. Hands wherever's comfortable, tip of the tongue on the roof of the mouth behind the two front teeth. Take a couple of nice deep breaths here into the body. Just allowing your breath and energy to return to normal with the spine tall. And just check in, notice how you're feeling, hopefully feeling a little bit more open, a little bit more grounded and more relaxed than when we first began. When you feel your breath and energy has returned to normal, let's finish our practice here. Let's inhale, bring the hands into prayer, the heart to close. Breathing into the heart space and sealing our practice here. When you're ready, you can blink the eyes open, bowing our heads. Namaste. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy your day. If you have questions or feedback, let me know. Otherwise, enjoy, and I'll see you guys soon.